Welcome back to the West Ham Voice on Tuesday early evening. Well, what do we make of the weekend's results? That includes, of course, the game against between Man United and Leeds United on Monday night. It seems that some of the results went our way and some didn't. Now, of the games involving teams facing relegation, I got one prediction right, and that was the game for us. West Ham's win over Wolverhampton Wanderers on Friday night. Of the other games involving teams facing relegation, I got all the others wrong. I predicted that Spurs might get a point away to Sunderland, but that proved to be incorrect, leaving Spurs stuck in the bottom three. I suggested that Aston Villa would beat Nottingham Forest away, but Forest nicked a point from that game. Forest were at home. They nicked a point from that game, which clearly didn't help us either. I guess the biggest surprise was Monday night's game, when I did think Man United were going to beat Leeds United, but Leeds reminded me why I should just stick to predicting the results for West Ham and not attempt to predict what might happen in other games. But I can't help myself, and I'm sure I'm going to continue offering my predictions for the remaining 6 games for each team that is continued to be threatened with relegation. But of all the weekend results, I guess the Leeds win is the one that could eventually either benefit us greatly or hurt us the most. Look, if you're new to this channel, first time you're watching the West Ham Voice, or if you've watched the channel before but yet to become a subscriber, a QR code has appeared in the top corner there. After the show, click on that code. It takes you straight to the subscription page. Subscription is free of charge. I just hit over 10,000 subscribers, so thank you for that. But let's see if I can get, 10,100 maybe. Look, as each game goes by, the relegation picture is going to continue to provide yet more twists and turns. Of that, I don't think any of us have any doubt. Leeds United, they went to Old Trafford on Monday night. They beat Man United. Huge result, a result that gives them a massive step towards safety. Now, as it still stands, there are mainly 6 clubs that are mathematically involved in this relegation dogfight. Burnley and Wolves, I guess they're more or less effectively gone, but there's still a chance for them to recover. But there seems to be now 3 teams who will still be, or who still are, in danger, and that, of course, is Nottingham Forest, ourselves, and West Ham and Tottenham Hotspur. However, Leeds are pulling away after beating Man U. They've now created a 6-point gap between themselves and 18th placed Spurs, as well as a 4-point gap away from ourselves. Now, before Monday night, Leeds were still catchable. I guess in essence, they still are. But in their remaining 6 games, they've got to play Wolves and Burnley in those two of those 6 games. Now, even if they win no other game, apart from Wolves and Burnley, that puts them on 42 points, and that is certainly going to be enough to keep them up. So I think they must be thinking psychologically that they're there. Now, that means the points target for survival has probably gone up for the other teams below Leeds, and that margin of error has now gone way down. In other words, if we make mistakes in our upcoming games, we could suffer greatly. I guess what's certain is that West Ham can no longer, and should never actually ever, rely on other teams to drop points to ensure our own Premier League safety. Survival rests on our shoulders, and frankly, I wouldn't have it any other way. If we don't accumulate the points we need, then we guess we deserve to go down. We still have got a long way to reach safety, but I still think there's a great chance to do so. With Burnley and Wolves almost gone, although mathematically they're not, of course, Leeds have just taken a huge step towards their own safety. That next milestone is how many teams can hit 36 points. Leeds now have it. Nottingham Forest are only a win away, and their next game is at home to Burnley. So you guess that they will probably get there this coming weekend. And if we can get at least 4 points from our next 2 games, away at Palace and then at home against Everton, then we'll be on that 36-point margin as well. In order for Tottenham Hotspur to get there, they've got to win their next 2 games, or they've got to win 2 games coming up. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting for a moment that 36 points is going to be enough for safety. But getting to that number of points will make clubs feel as if safety is within their reach. I'm sure that Leeds would have felt that when they beat Man U on Monday night. Our game against Crystal Palace on Monday takes even greater significance if it didn't already. If we can get a win in that game, then we're on 35 points. If we get a point, we're on 33. And then we have that crucial home game against Everton coming up after that. But how ironic would it be if David Moyes came to the London Stadium to drive the dagger deeper into the heart of West Ham? What if it's Everton's side win and that's damaging to us? Let's not think about that. I think we can beat them anyway. Look, in order to beat teams, we should take a lesson from the way Leeds United performed against Man U. They were at it from the first minute, and there could have been a goal up within 2 minutes of kickoff. In fact, it actually only took them 5 minutes to go into the lead, and by half time, they could have been even further ahead. They were relentless, and they just went for it. No fear, but I guess it's a fine balance between having no fear and making sure that you don't expose yourselves in defence. But in order to combat that, Leeds went with 5 at the back, with their wing-backs marauding forward. That's something Man United didn't expect. And that could be the other factor, the element of surprise. Do something your opponents are not expecting to throw them off guard. It won't surprise me if Nuno took note of what Daniel Farke did with the way Leeds set themselves up, and he may do something similar, probably against Arsenal when we host them in a few weeks' time. But let's deal with one game at a time, shall we? Let's deal with the game against Crystal Palace first. By the time we play them, Leeds would have played against Wolves, Spurs would have played against Brighton, and Nottingham Forest would have played against Burnley. Now, if all 3 home teams win, then we will be kicking off against Palace again, back down in the bottom 3. 7 points behind Leeds, 4 points behind Forest, and 1 point behind Spurs. That's our worst case scenario, though. But as I've said, our survival is in our hands now. Will it be too much pressure for West Ham? I don't think so. The form guide, as I said in my West Ham Weekly show on Monday night, the form guide in the past 10 games puts us 8th in the league. If the league started 10 games ago, we'd be competing for Europe rather than fighting relegation. And we're in the healthy half of the league. Whereas, I mean, okay, Leeds have raised themselves, but they're still in the bottom half with the past 10, 11 results. Nottingham Forest are down there. And of course, Tottenham Hotspurs are rooted at the bottom. But I guess for us, we're still paying the price for a poor start to the season. And that's been the problem, hasn't it? We've had to make up so much ground compared to but we've done that compared to where we were at the beginning of January. 6 more games, everyone. I guess we've got to keep the faith. And a good result against Crystal Palace will certainly keep that faith going.